I'll start soon. Thank you very much for doing this, by the way.
Oh, hey, thank you for having me. I hope you've
Uh,
been well. I hope everything's going okay.
yeah, it's going. I guess is what people usually say.
It is the year 2020 for sure.
Yeah, things are happening. But otherwise, it's going all right. Got a lot of jobs. It's gonna get really busy really soon in StarCraft.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Do you pay much attention to the scene anymore?
I can't say I've actually followed any of the recent tournaments. Is something exciting happen? Is now a good time to jump in?
You know what? Why? Yeah, why not? Go ahead. Hey guys, it's Caster Calls, episode 12. I'm with Seltzer. Yeah, I just, I wanted to get your perspective on the EPT stuff if you had heard about it. But it sounds like maybe you haven't heard about the big changeover for StarCraft,
No, it
right?
sounds like I'm in for some exciting news here. We were having a little pre-show
Okay.
conversation, and now I've obligated you to tell me about what's coming up in StarCraft.
Yeah. So yeah. It was actually a pretty big deal. StarCraft, has recently, I guess for anyone who doesn't know that either, back in November it was announced and then kicked off for Katowice. So we changed all from Blizzard doing our tournaments, right? Which is what they've been doing for years now, to the point where not many other third parties was really involved. Like DreamHack was the official partner, and so on and so forth. To everything being moved to ESL production. So Blizzard basically does no tournament production whatsoever, except for a couple of things with like the War Chest, which is our crowdfunded um, chest of money, and then all the tournament production goes to ESL. So they have a whole new circuit, and it was a 3-year contract. So all of us feel very secure for 3 years, and obviously like things happen, so it's a bit different now. But I Am Katowice became our world championship instead of BlizzCon, and if BlizzCon was still happening, we just have a bit of a show match. But yeah, it's entirely transferred over. It's in really good hands. So
I think I saw was that Apollo's tweet early on with the announcement, and he was so excited as someone who's been really involved in the scene for so long. So,
yeah.
as another caster who has been grinding away at StarCraft 2, I'm really glad to see you guys are really excited by this new format.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we could discuss, some of the headaches that are involved with a company like Blizzard, just how many the lawyers that you have to go through and all the like I'll get back to you after I talk to this person and this person and this person. But ESO doesn't really have a whole lot of that, so it's been really a lot of fun. And yeah, Apollo's actually been fantastic. You hear some things about a person, and you're like, well, they can't possibly be that great. Um, and then not only is he like an excellent commentator, he's actually doing an excellent job at ESL. It actually took me a little while to really believe it, but he's been really receptive. Like anytime a pro gamer would tweet at him, like, "Hey, I think this seating was inappropriate" or whatever, he'd be like, "I'll look into it," which just wouldn't really happen before.
That that's the value of having been a player, having been talent, having been a caster for so many years. That when he finally gets to sit down at the controls, I'm really glad he's flipping the right switches there.
Yeah, no, it's been excellent. So, anyways, it's not how I imagine the start of it going, but it might be an important, I guess, piece of information for future discussions. Yeah, I mostly want to talk about you, and well, it was fitting because you used to be one of our hosts back in StarCraft 2, as well as doing a bunch of interviews, and just like many people, you started off in StarCraft, right? It's a bit of the start for a lot of careers. But I want to know a lot about what's happening with you besides that, and just hear a little bit about your journey. Like, so if you can take us all the way back to I don't know when you first got started, actually, because I don't actually know the origin story of Seltzer here. So can you take us back to that point when you started getting interested in esports and when your first jobs started to come up?
Well, it's kind of interesting. At the end of high school is when I first started traveling to events. I met my boyfriend, who I'm still with, who we've been on this incredible, like, 15-year esports centric journey. And He was an RTS player. We were at the time both playing FPS competitively. We played TF2. We'd go to tournaments and compete. But then I got to thinking I would go to these esports tournaments and events, and you kind of like walk up and spontaneously like play a 10-man and win a headset or something like that. And I had done this before, way back in the day, right when Pokemon came out. They used to have the Pokemon League at Toys R Us, and my mom would drop
Oh
me
my
off for
god.
like 2-3 hours on a Sunday, and I would play the card games and the video games. And I was like, wait a minute, this is familiar. I know brackets. I know Ron Robbins. I can do this. And I wanted to be a competitor for a long time, and then I got the opportunity finally on the reality show Ultimate Gamer. I was like, all right,
Oh
this is a
no.
bunch of different gamers, a bunch of different games.
clearly I'm gonna, be okay at some, most, no, not really all that great at them. So
Oh,
I
wow.
got to like train alongside like Justin Wong and like Kat Gunn, who are just like phenomenal at everything they put their hands on in video games. And I realized like that's not my skill. But I did get really good at kind of telling my story, telling the story of what was going on around me. And it was right around the time that video games were becoming more and more of a spectator, experience. And so
Hmm.
the role of a host was one that kind of like came up um, through trying to present esports as something spectators could watch and not just that players could play it and enjoy.
Hmm. Did you ever give any thought to being a commentator?
I tried. Oh, there's a great I think wow StarCraft 2 clip of me and Moletrap trying to cast some
No
StarCraft, and like
way.
bless him, he put me in that backpack and he ran up that mountain and I was like, wow, and then a baneling explosion. Like I have ultimate respect for what you commentators do because my brain just it works fast but not I can't say what I see. Like it's actually shocking how limited I am at that skill.
Oh, it's definitely a skill. I've talked a lot about two play-by-play casters and analysts about play-by-play and just how like you think it sounds like the easier thing, but then you actually try and do it, and it just like is amazing how much we can't say what we're seeing.
No, wait,
So
you
I get
have
that.
as a caster, you have to have such an access, like such a library of terms that you can just whip out and experience and
Yeah.
phraseology and like references to other games. It is, back on our conversation of Apollo, he would show up to StarCraft tournaments with this huge binder just full of all these notes. It was wild, and that's what I saw, and that's what I was like. That's what it takes to be a caster. I'm not going to be any better at that than I am at fighting games like Justin Wong is. So hosting an interview.
Okay, so you gave it a go, but it didn't really work out for you. Was that Brood War, by the way, with Mole Trap?
No, we were cast. Oh gosh,
Okay.
was it?
Well, you said Baneling, so I assumed StarCraft 2, but I wasn't sure if you were just
Yeah, it must have been StarCraft too. I was like, I wouldn't
okay.
have even like known what to do with Brood War.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it was pretty early on, but yeah, Mole Trap. Also, he was actually more well known, I would say, for his Brood War. That's why he got involved in StarCraft 2. But anyways, he's actually back, by the way. He was in my chat a couple days ago. We
No
were just
way! What a
watching
mole trap.
StarCraft again. Yeah, yeah.
We
So,
lived together at the GOM TV guest house in Korea for a while. There were a lot of different like
oh
casters and
boy,
players out there in the day, and
yeah. You just like
that was
opened up
wild.
this whole book of nostalgia for me. Like everything you just said right there, like Pokemon and the Toys R Us tournaments and that show. And then like, oh man, that feels like so
Were
long
you
ago
into
now.
it? Were you into Pokemon? Are you into
No,
Pokemon?
not really. No, I was not. I had a
Good day to
friend
me. The
who
interview's over.
was.
I'm leaving. Bye.
I was like, oh god, no. I hope Pokemon's all she can talk about. No, like, of course I play Pokemon and I love Pokemon, and Pokemon Snap coming out is like one of the greatest things ever. And I recently actually I replayed Heart Gold because of course I'm one of those people that's like I'm a boomer for Pokemon, I guess, right? I'm a
It's a
Pokemon
very
boomer.
good one. Are
Well,
you
for
a boomer?
me,
I don't know. Then I'm a geezer. So
well, for me it's like Gen 2 and then everything else started being stupid, like that type of boomer mentality. So anyways, got Pokemon going. And anyways, I had a friend who was into it, and it was one of those things where it was just like I can't believe that so many people are into this nerdy thing, because back then when I was, 14 or 15 or whatever it was, like it just didn't seem like anything nerdy was going to be widely popular. And not that it was shunned necessarily, but it just didn't, the idea, the concept of it being something that you would go and play and people would actually come and watch, and then there'd be like nationally ranked people, something you just scoffed at. So whether it was trading card games or esports, like both of them were just kind of things that you scoffed at. G4 or G4 TV tried making something happen, tried making it seem kind of like the cooler thing to do, and those were my some of my favorite years of television, but it just didn't seem like it would ever really work. So, anyways, I find StarCraft 2, that's where esports really blew up. And would you say that that's really where you found a career in esports, was around that boom?
yeah, I would say, being really plugged in with StarCraft 2. My partner who I mentioned I met in high school, Torch, he played in GSL season one. Actually, like left school, traveled to Korea, ended up working for GOM TV, running that GOM TV guest house. And so, I had this amazing in when I wanted to cover StarCraft content where I could go to Korea, I could talk to players and team owners. We actually, early on, it was over a decade ago, I teamed up with Cyber Sports Network at the time, and they sent me over to Korea, and I went to, I think, 8 or 10 different team houses, ran in-house tournaments, and then put a bracket together. We did this all online. It was called Clash of the Houses. It's amazing. I'm pretty sure Doa like narrates our intro and stuff. And then July Zerg won. So we brought July Zerg to, I'm pretty sure it was MLG Columbus. It was one of the first time a Korean StarCraft 2 player came out and played. And it was all by virtue of just having this incredible access and getting like really early into the StarCraft scene.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Again, that was like such a throwback. I mean, I've talked to some old school people, but you're just you're just bringing up everything that's like so far back.
I live in the past.
No, 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 no. But like, yeah, all those names. What was I gonna say? Did you start? Did you have like a good footing? Did you go to university? Did you have a family that supported you? That because you said you kind of like threw out there like I could go to Korea, and I'm like, you just went like.
Oh, absolutely, like a huge privilege, right? But I was really lucky. Like, for example, I had just I was in college at the time, just finishing that up around 2010, and I have worked since I was like 15, working holidays in the mall and stuff. But my parents paid for college. Like, I was so fortunate to have the amazing support system they gave me, be able to save my own money and then be able to spend it on something like a trip to college, because I didn't spend. I mean, when I think about my background, like, no, I studied like psychology in school, but that did give me this awesome background to kind of like talk to people and try and understand people and be more open-minded. And like, I didn't, have a great background in like anthropology or culture or pop culture or anything, but I have been so immersed in Pokemon and in anime and going to conventions and going up on stage in my Duo Maxwell cosplay and making a big old ass of myself that like I had gotten all this shyness out of the way really early on. And I had spent a lot of time being this advocate of things I love. And so when I found gaming and I found stages for me to stand on and microphones already set up, I was like, okay, well, I would love to tell the story of what fascinates me here at a video game event to a greater audience, because I think that audience would love it too. That audience would want to be a part of it. And that audience could find all the fun that I'm finding and, be better off for it. So there's a lot of that kind of like, I found this awesome thing. You guys all have to get in here. I don't have the skill to tell you. I don't have the experience to tell you. I just know that what I have is amazing and I wanted to share it.
Well, that's very
Can you
wholesome.
hear my cat? I'm sorry.
No, I would have asked you the same question. My cat's also yelling at me.
Oh, good. No, we're clear.
Yeah, we're clear. They'll podcast listeners will like it anyways. So, I mean, it sounds like it was kind of one of those perfect opportunity, perfect situation, perfect timing, kind of hitting that boom as well, and just like knowing the right people to be actively involved in that, like actually knowing Torch, to get involved with that was pretty sick. So, you were saying that you just really didn't find any shyness, like your shyness was all gone away by then. I mean, did you have any nerves walking up to your first stage, perhaps, or even just
Oh
on
yeah,
any camera?
I still have nerves every day. I mean, well, do you? I mean, as a performer in a similar space, going up onto those same stages, like, do you feel that like that the night before every event, I'm like, can I do this job? Why am I here? They flew me out here. Like, what am I doing? Like, and then you get there and you put that earpiece in and you're like, nah, I got this. I've done this before.
I do get some of that, yeah. I remember the very first time I did an event was like a big event, I should say. It was Nation Wars, and I remember just being like nervous because I was going to be with like the the big like on screen famous guys, and they were all really chill. But as soon as I had to talk about StarCraft, it was easy. But it was one of those things where I hear a lot of people say that when they when they were in school, they weren't necessarily good public speakers. A couple of people actually were, and so they really felt it quite fine. But a lot of people, more so I would say, were like, yeah, I never thought I was a very social person. I never thought that I would go up on camera or in front of a crowd. But as soon as I talked about StarCraft or Pokemon or CSGO or about something, like I could do it without thinking about the crowd. So did you have that effect, or was it actually just something more casual?
I think it was, and I think about kind of this like, I don't want to call it like a stupidity bubble, but it was just this like, I thought I was the coolest, and like I people would be like, "You're a dumb nerd," and I'm like, "Thanks for noticing." Like I was impenetrable, and it's to this day like that ignorance has been my bliss over the years. Where I just thought I had something so cool, and at different times, it's esports now. It used to be like yaoi fan fiction before, and that was not okay. This was me trying to promote like, hey, I'm in
Oh my
eighth
God.
grade at Catholic school. You want to see all these pictures from Japan of boys kissing? And people would be like, you need to stop. But um,
I
yeah,
can't believe you're that person, man.
yes, I was past tense that person. I just had so much, like, I had so much joy, and I've always been like a really happy person, and so the stuff that would normally stop me or make me feel self-conscious, I think just kind of, I was like, whatever. Like, you sure
Wow.
you don't want to see all my Pokemon? Like,
Dang. Be so
I don't know.
unabashed. That's
I'm
so
sure I've
cool.
missed a lot of clues along the way. I'm sure, I've lost as much as I've gained, no doubt, but
I don't know about that. To be so unabashedly wholesome, I mean, it's infectious. Like, I might judge you a little bit if you were the type of anime fan. I won't use the W term to glomp people, but I don't know. The one thing I always really respected, because I was an anime nerd for sure, and some people would definitely call me a weeb, but for me, a weeb was always someone who was also incredibly socially awkward. Like, as soon as you met them, you were best friend, and I was just never okay with that. I'm not a hugger. I'm not like anyone's best friend instantly. So, like, I know so many people that are like that though, and as much as I was like uncomfortable with their ability to just be open with people, I eventually realized, like, okay, I'm being kind of ignorant here, like, to just accept that they are so open with people and that they just accept people and they just want to like show their affection is actually not the worst thing in the world, right? So it's actually quite wholesome. I really enjoy hearing this, and hopefully to a
well,
lot of other people.
I think you bring up an important distinction there, though, of wholesomeness, where I've always been like focused on what I'm excited about, and I've always been very aware of my boundaries, and increasingly aware of other people's boundaries. And glumping was a part of that, because my first anime conventions, I was like, "What's glumping? I'm gonna glump," and then you run into somebody too hard the first time, and you're like, "Glumping's over. We're canceling glumping. I've attacked this small, 80-pound girl with too hard of a hug." So, it was a learning experience. I was glad I was aware enough to process that it wasn't a good idea very early on, but
Yeah.
yeah, some people don't learn, and that's where the community starts to stratify, or I felt like I was a little older after a while returning to anime conventions, where I was like, I can't participate in this level of unbridled fun anymore, I guess. I'm miserable now.
I've gone to a couple of anime conventions. I usually went for the art because I wanted to be an artist and all that stuff. But obviously I liked anime. But yeah, I went back very, very recently. They had a fundraiser for the fires in Australia. I was down in Australia, and I just saw it pop on my feed, and it was like, post anime convention dance, party type thing. And it was fundraiser, so I was like, this sounds so fun. Like, I'm gonna go there and be like the least socially awkward person for once in my life. Like, and I went, and it was, I definitely felt old. Let's just say that it was a fun experience, but as soon as the people started doing that dance that I don't know what the name is, but kind of, maybe you know the one I'm talking about, where they just kind
I
of flail their
don't.
arms around, I was just like, oh, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
was never
jet.
up on the anime dances. That always was
Yeah,
beyond me.
yeah.
But I'm glad you went, though.
Anyways,
I do love the art.
yeah, I was if we're talking about anime histories, I was a forum role player. Was primarily my entry into anime. So
Did you do it on Neopets?
I did not. No, I was not on Neopets. I did on Gaia Online.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, we were almost on the same online role play forum. It would have been.
Almost, yes. So I was very familiar with that, and I guess it got me into anime nerdom. But you go to these anime conventions, you're a part of this community. I assumed you're probably on Tumblr if I had to guess, and all that. Did you ever feel that that really accelerated you into gaming, or did you feel like it was just two different things? Because I always felt it was two different things, but I know some people have more crossover.
Well, I feel like a lot of, like, gaming is a lot of things, and a big part of it is being online and knowing like online etiquette, like, basic stuff like having the same, findable username across multiple accounts. So if somebody wanted to go to your DeviantArt or your AOL chat room or something, they could make sure you're the same one. Like, how to talk to people and convey your message via text, and how to be understood. I feel like as an early online person, like, those are some of the best skills that I got talking on Neopets, organizing my guild there, managing different personalities, like trying to keep people like happy and interested in the thing that I was interested in. Like, it was it was this amazing passive lesson. And I think those are skills that I almost use more day to day than a lot of the stuff that I'm sure I was learning in school at the time about like mitochondria. But I can still like manage the hell out of an online community today.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I really attribute to my people would say it was a natural gift of writing, but I always was just like I started very, very young, having to write coherent sentences to my RP partner, so they could also write coherent sentences back to me. So I feel like it really did help me form, like, obviously it helped me be the person I was today, but some people are I guess more willing to shun that part of their life, away. Especially I feel like women, right? Like they, especially if they have trouble identifying as a gamer, which is always like this weird topic. But anyways, if they were gotten into it from anime, or if they're also into anime, it becomes like this stereotype where, if you're in anime and you're into yaoi, which is also very much so the stereotype, then you must not be really into gaming. What you're into is Overwatch, for instance. You're into the pretty characters, and you're into the looks, I suppose, more than the gaming. So I feel like I've listened to some stories where they want to shun that side of them, and I've always felt very odd about that. But on the other hand, I can kind of see it, right? Because there is that challenge a little bit more where like women want to try and make sure that they have all the bases, not the bases loaded. They want to be ready for anyone who challenges them on their interest in gaming.
I mean, I can definitely see that. Like the goalposts are always moving, and like how to stay within like what the best resume is for like an online female presence is so. I feel like by trying to police it in yourself, or by me trying to police it in myself, rather, like I would be perpetuating some fantasy idea of what's right and wrong. Like I see everything I've done in my past, whether it was, the Pokemon League, or whether it was going to anime conventions, or whether it was, spending hours and hours online role playing in like AOL chat rooms. That is my nerd resume. Like that contributed so much to this pool of skills that I draw on today. And I don't know, I have tremendous like gratitude and respect for, my younger self just like doing that shit and not letting anybody stop them, because it equipped me so well to go out and to talk to my peers today who didn't stop themselves from loving and pursuing those things either, because no one told them they shouldn't. I was really grateful that along the way no one really told me that I shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, that was very important. So it kind of bring it on track to your development as a host and interviewer. So did anyone come to you when you were doing all this stuff, when you were just like bright and wholesome and just really wanted to be excited? Did anyone ever come to you? Like, obviously, aside from trolls are just going to be trolls. Did anyone in authority or anyone you would potentially work with, did anyone ever come in and kind of like try to cut you down? Say like, hey, like bring it down a notch, or hey, you need to be more authentic, or not authentic. You need to be less authentic on camera because you're too excited. You're too happy.
Yeah.
Did that ever happen?
I'm trying to think back, and my story is kind of in the opposite, where I was in college and I wanted to write a paper about PMS clan. So I went to a local event in Philadelphia and I was like, I'm going to interview PMS clan. And it was, they had a bunch of those walk-up tournaments, and I had won like a video card and a headset and like a hat and all this stuff. So I had these like bags of prizes, and I was like, can I interview Amber and Amy? And they're like, interview? Why don't you join our clan? So it was one of those like dream, like, whoa, this is the start of my movie. I got invited to join a gaming clan. Like, it was a positive and uplifting experience. And then, I was working for PMS clan, and my friends, they would become my friends at NoobTube TV, saw me working, and they were like, we want to interview you. And then they did the interview, and they're like, we'd actually love for you to be our interviewer. Like I can't pretend like I had like a huge struggle. Like I was lifted up so much more than anyone sought to bring me down, that I have just immense gratitude for the people that enabled me to, again, have that like bubble around me of positivity that was kind of impenetrable. I got tons of critique, especially in the early StarCraft days. You remember the Reddit? They are very direct and very firm with their things that they think you should be. And I spent a lot of time processing that and trying to be it. And then had this moment at WCS 2012 where I did an interview and I was smiling and nodding, and they're like, look at her smiling like she understands. And so the next interview I straight faced, and they're like, look at her blanked out up there. And I'm like, I can't win. It's over. I'm just going to do my damn job. And it's kind of been that way ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I said like the trolls always be the trolls, but yeah, if anyone would try to direct you, I suppose, what you would be. But yeah, it sounds like being genuine is the best solution there. I was part of
Well,
the
and
PMS clan, by the way.
hell
Like,
yeah, sister.
yeah, that was definitely a thing. People were probably like, "What the hell are they talking about?" And it was like, I think they realized what they were naming the clan, guys. I think they
We were
realized what they were doing.
Pandora's mighty soldiers, and definitely not psychotic manslayers. It was a
Didn't know
great
that was right.
experience, though. But
Yeah.
I will say the other thing about, people before they could bring me down, like before I could walk off stage and a mean director could kind of cut me down or something, like I, it's not fun to say, but like I hate me more than anyone else hates me. Like if I do an interview, like I know before anyone knows at home everything that I did wrong, and like I'm so much more angry at myself than anyone else could be. And I had an amazing experience when I worked recently at OGN for PUBG League, where I had producers. I'd get down off the stage and I'd be like, "That was not a good interview. I'm really not happy." And they were like, "Well, if you had asked a follow up question here and maybe double down here on his lack of response, it would have been perfect." And so I always try and platform you know feedback. I love feedback, and very few people in this industry are actually brave enough to give feedback. There's a lot of liability and other I'm sure it doesn't go as well giving feedback to other people as it does to me. I love it. I need to know what I did wrong, and that you confirming to me and telling me what it is lets me like file it away and work on it. And so I will say that, in that before anyone could kind of throw it at me, I'm already like, please.
Yeah. Have you always been good at taking feedback?
Probably not. But yeah, I've been in a long relationship, and I've learned a lot about communication over the years. So
Okay, fair. I know for me, it's like I'm probably like less than good at feedback, if I'm being honest. But I do one of those things where someone will tell me something very legitimate, and I'll be like, "You're what, whatever," and then 2 minutes later, I'll be like, "Yeah, I guess you had a point." So I'm trying to work on it. But do
yeah, well,
you?
it's such an act of love to get feedback, though. I will say that, like,
Mm,
to have somebody critically examine, what you did, and then try and give you a piece of information, even if it's off base, even if it's not right, even if it's like coming from the worst place. I'm always like, well, thank you for listening. But nothing is worse than getting it in the moment on stage when you're like, oh, not now, chief. I'm in the fucking zone. Like,
yeah. I mean, do you get feedback that quickly? I mean, usually it is kind of agreed upon, I feel, by the producers and technical directors and whatnot to kind of wait for the wrap
yeah.
up or something like that.
In my fun time as being a host for many things, from like blowing up cars on Amazon to like traveling Japan catching Pokemon, I have had so many different production teams that have pushed so many different buttons. Most of them are amazing, but every once in a while you'll just be like in this critical moment, like under a freezing cold waterfall, and someone will be like, ah, you could have done a little more, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, I can't.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when it do you ever how do you process feedback then, or how do you look for feedback? Do you actually go up to people and say like, hey, can you review this thing that I did? Do you still do that? Did you ever do that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I, especially working at OGN, but pretty much on every stage I've worked on, you have a producer, and especially as a host, I understand as a caster, you kind of get set in that seat and you just go through those games and you hear production in your ear. But like for me, it's a lot of like I walk up on stage, I do my thing, and then I go straight back to the producer, like a little puppy dog, and I'm like, how'd I do? How'd I do? And that's my feedback cycle. And usually like I will have done a self-analysis, so I'll be like, how did I do? I felt like that interview went a little fast. Did you feel like I missed anything? And that way they know that like I'm sincerely looking for something. I have an idea of what it is. And if a lot of times, 99% of the time, they'll be like, I didn't listen, or you did great, kid. And you're like, okay, thank you. Like if you don't care, that's neutral. But I so appreciate I've had Luke and Perry from OGN. I don't know if they're still there or whatever they're doing. If you ever get the chance to work with them, 10 out of 10 production. They gave me amazing feedback in my time at MPL.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know if I ever will. OGN and StarCraft parted ways quite a while ago, but it's always good to know.
Never know. Might come back. Might come back.
It might, yeah. I mean, heck, people thought that this was the last year for StarCraft, and then we actually have 3 more years. So crazy things happen, right? Um, so again, going back on like the more linear chronological thing, you are one of the very rare people that I can ask this about. So excuse me being vague and kind of hurried because I didn't pre-plan it, but I realized it when you were talking about it. So back when young ZombieGrub was getting into StarCraft 2, what I saw when I was coming in was basically 2011. So not too far after it had even been released. There was such a big boom, and a lot of it was fake to be real, right? There was a lot of sketchy things happening, but there was such a big boom that we saw a bunch of people being flown over. You know, the non-Koreans were being very well represented, and there was tons of tournaments all over America. And what I remember seeing was that there was a lot of women being flown around. And I remember thinking, because 2011 Zombie Grub wasn't as nice as 2020 Zombie Grub, like I was so jealous. I was like, damn, like I can be as good as those chicks. And I can fly over the world and do this type of stuff. Do you see a different atmosphere for women in gaming, like especially professional side, like the competitor side, I should say, in those years than you do now? And do you think it was better or worse?
This is a question about like female competitors in StarCraft 2?
Yeah, female
Or as
competitors and just in general how many opportunities they get. Like, did you think that the amount of women being flown around on teams like Quantic and Complexity, did you think that was encouraging, or did you think that this was something more like a money, like throwing money at something and hoping something would stick? Because I know there was a lot of debate about that, basically, in the good old days. So I'm asking a very thinly veiled controversial question. So let me rephrase. Do you think that the opportunities for women to get on a team are decent right now compared to back then? And do you think that things like women only teams and women specific tournaments are necessary and helpful, or do you think that they have more drawbacks than positives? There you go.
Yeah, no, that's definitely one that has kind of been a center of conversation like over the years in talking about esports. And there's a couple different ways that I like to like talk about the question. First and foremost is the idea of esports as marketing. I mean, you mentioned like early on, StarCraft was a boom. How much of that was real? How much of that was people, overestimating numbers, overestimating funding? How much of that was, people overestimating North American players or European players? It was all about getting eyeballs, getting attention, and putting forward this idea of success. And so you saw a lot of people try to achieve that presentation in a lot of different ways. I think there were a lot of players worthy of celebrating. I wouldn't say that anybody got to do anything that I don't think they deserve to do. I think it was a time of people trying to figure out what was right. And so I will say, like, any money spent doing that was trying to promote StarCraft greater. You know what I mean? And also trying to give genuine opportunities to people that might be underrepresented. I think we've seen failure of pipeline in a lot of different industries as far as onboarding diversity, onboarding new perspectives and new viewpoints. And obviously there's an issue with that pipeline when you get to the end of the road and you kind of don't have the same representation. So I think in gaming, we have a lot of kind of concrete things to point to, which is that gaming's relatively new. It was kind of sold to young men early on. And I would see year over year, I've seen greater and greater female participation. I've seen some of the best gamers I've met. Kat Gunn won my season of WCG Ultimate Gamer. She took out Justin Wong. She took out Yazamari. She took out a lot of top gamers. She had the skill. She grew up playing games. It was a gaming household. And so I think as the population of who has games the entirety of their life evens out, we'll see that same equality in who's kind of represented at the end of the day. I don't know, there's a lot of things to talk about. Like when WCS did region locking to guarantee a certain amount of North American players, how wasn't that a similar sort of favoritism and forced representation?
Yes, yeah.
I thought that when I saw female players getting celebrated, getting flown to locations, getting asked to participate, that created an aspirationality for me that I remember when I started gaming, I had the frag dolls to look up to. I had like a couple different women. I would read like InQuest magazine and all sorts of other things and see like a Jessica Chobot and be like, okay, well, there's at least that spot for me. And so it gave me something to work towards. So I would say the effects of having those women flown around in 2011 are paying off positively today. And I don't think there was any harm in doing them. And I think that women-only tournaments are really helpful in building this space. Coming from PMS Clan, having a female-only space gave me a lot of freedom to put my gender on a shelf and do everything else, to just be a gamer, because everyone else was already kind of similar to me in that regard. and I played with men and women in PMS and H2O clan. I don't know. This is like such a big question. I'm like trying to like unpack all of it frantically like a giant IKEA box. I think that, you know, as long as it's done in good faith, it's
Hmm.
and it's punching up. You know, women are underrepresented. We're trying to expand that market, whether you're coming from a marketing angle, whether you're coming from a diversity angle. There's so much benefit to it. So, you know, I wonder why anyone spends energy fighting against it. No one is losing out on the greater market by having these smaller things.
Yeah. Would you say that, you know, comparing, you know, 9 years ago at this point and today, I mean, do you think that there is just more chances for women to shine now? Because we're talking about multiple esports and, you know, team leagues from very popular games that are actually trying to make like women only teams and women only leagues. So do you see like a massive difference in that representation in 2020?
I would say, yeah. I mean, first of all, there's more games. There's more roles in the competitive space. So I've seen women as coaches or as team managers now too. There's Twitch now where if you are a solo player, you can find a community, you can show off your skills. There's no barrier of entry to that. And so we're just seeing a lot more of the women who have been in this space or who represent, you know, the greater population. The visibility on women playing video games is definitely way better than it was 11 years ago. And, you know, I got to cover a Fortnite event at TwitchCon, and the winner was this incredible young girl named Tina. She was just crushing kids. I handed her the MVP trophy and the tournament first place trophy because her teammates thought, you know, these two young guys thought she was the most important person to have on the team too. Like it's,
Mm-hmm.
I I don't want to take anything away from her victory, but it may have been a more emotional moment for me where I'm like, "You're amazing. You're so great. I dreamed of this moment." And she's like, "Thanks, lady. I'll take the trophy. Like, bye." Like, it's nothing to them. And that's what I've always ever wanted. I don't want to be like celebrated because I'm a female. I want to be not told right off the bat that I can't do something because I'm a female. Like if I can't do it, I'll figure it out. I figured out that I'm not the best gamer. I'll get there on my own. You know, nobody needs to tell me early on and like shoot down, you know, my hopes. And I think that's a lot of what was at play in the space earlier on that is becoming increasingly less cool these days. Still prevalent in your online, you know, lobbies and stuff like that, but the trend is hopefully bending towards justice. I don't
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Thank you for taking that, you know, vague, complicated question and actually giving a very excellent answer, by the way.
I'm
It
glad
was
that
much
there was an
better.
answer in there.
Yeah, as I tried to get my words around. But yeah, that was exactly what I was trying to get to. So thank you very much for that. Did you ever experience anything that you felt like very directly, like, you know, like, oh, okay, I was a woman? You don't have to say anything specific, but like
Oh,
for
sure.
me,
Oh,
I
yes.
have dealt with people like not shaking my hand. You know what I mean? Like doing that whole like, hi, 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 skip, hi, hi, like anything like that in your career.
Oh, like girl, on stage, someone did that same thing. Handshake, 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 skipped me. Oh, it was the Overwatch World Cup, and it was a production team that I don't remember that had nothing to do with Blizzard. It was hired in at the time, and I was standing at the desk. It was like caster, me, caster, shook his hand, skipped me, and I did that thing. I will always fucking say something. And girls, if you're at a party and you see me, I will protect you. But holy shit, I was just like, "Hi, I have a hand too." And well, he didn't like me for the rest of that show, but got my handshake.
Damn, yeah, shit,
It's
yeah.
not, I'm not cool. Like I'm not cool, and I have no filter though. So if I see injustice, I freak out a little bit. I'm not cool about it.
How do you handle things that you're not sure about though? Like it's a very personal question. This is just me definitely talking. Like, how do you handle it when you're just kind of like, wait, like, hold on, was that because was it because I was a woman? Like, I don't really know.
I mean, I'll ask. I'll be like,
Really?
"Hey, why didn't you shake my hand there?" Like if I'm aware of it. Sometimes it gets beyond the stupid bubble and I don't realize that I've, you know, been
Mm.
insulted. And sometimes I take insult and I say something and then that person says, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. This was the situation. You know, I just got a bunch of grease on my hand and, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm so glad we talked about it because if I didn't say anything, I would lie awake in the hotel room every night of this trip and think about it, and I would hate you, and you wouldn't even know. So, I can't help myself, and actually, that's been a big help for me. Like, it gets to the bottom of the situation, whether I look cool or not. I've said my piece and I get to find the information that I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I know you don't mean to make it sound so easy, but I just like I wish I could just do that abruptly. I think I'm actually definitely on the side of you, to be honest. Like I definitely don't try to sweep things under the rug. And like I've had my fair share of like the moments where you think you're gonna like not be able to say anything, and then you actually go, wait a fucking second, like hold on here, like let's talk this out. But gosh, it can be very difficult to do, especially when you feel like there's jobs on the line, right? Have you ever felt like so squeezed by that? I mean, not necessarily because you're a woman, but just by other things, like squeezed by being a freelancer, basically not having that guaranteed job. Has it ever affected how you've interacted with people?
I would say like the most recent example of that I could think of was, we're all working from home because of uh, COVID in the US. And so, work has kind of really changed up for me. I'm doing a lot more online hosting. I'm doing a lot more like small things here and there when this would normally be a really busy season for me. I'd be traveling a lot. And so, um, kind of, I'm aware, again, being online, that my presence in the world that we exist in the esports world, in the gaming industry, in the pop culture world that I touch on, is through Instagram and Twitter and, Twitch. That's how I reach out. That's my network now. That's what my world has been reduced to. And with the death of George Floyd, with the Black Lives Matter movement, I see those private utilities that I've developed. The only thing that I think I can do with them is turn them over to the public good. So, at the head, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I don't want to post a selfie. I don't want to go live on and play a video game. I just, can do nothing but kind of share what's going on, tweets that I think will help, things that, we feel like, are important to bring focus to.
Mm.
And so then I had a campaign that I'm very, very attached to that would take place largely online. And I had that moment where I was like, oh no, is all my sharing of Black Lives Matter, is all my promoting of, these radical voices, is all my asking for change going to cost me money? Is one thing, but like attachment to this brand that I'm so partial to, is it going to cost me that? And I really had this moment. I don't know if it will. I haven't heard from them yet. I don't know if I don't hear from them, this will be the reason. But to just be like, no, fuck it. If this is what it cost me, this is what it cost me. Like, I believe in this thing. Like, what's more important than human life? What's more important than justice? There's definitely moments where I do feel like I'm a freelancer and, I have to make the choice for money, not for justice. But the reality of it is I am exceptionally privileged to be living in a world where gaming is my main concern, that if I have to throw it all away, like, yeah, no problem, in the trash. Like, and honestly, that's a very dramatic view. No one is asking me to do that. And I don't feel so martyred or anything like that. But it was just one of those moments where I live with this really fun video game, happy, joyful life, and to be confronted with that, I hope I would make the right choice every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very topical thing. I well, thank you for saying all that. First of all, like that's really actually very inspiring. I think many of us have questioned ourselves on those types of things because it's more than just being a streamer. When it's supposed to be all about casting, but of course, when it comes to casting, we also inevitably become people with communities and voices. So it's definitely another aspect to just living the lives that we do. So thank you for that. I'll have to stew on it
Well,
more
thanks for your
so
question.
myself. Yeah. I thought it was going to be more like, I actually don't know. Maybe it was more like, oh, I heard this person didn't like me, so I was exceptionally nice to them, like that type of thing to get a job. But all this stuff
Yeah.
is very important.
I will say, as far as like being concerned about, I feel also very lucky that I have a manager, and I've had this manager for over 10 years, Andrew at Character Select Agency, and back at, CSM back in the day. He knows me. He interfaces on my behalf with the industry. Him and his partner Kurt at CSA, my other manager, another phenomenal guy. Like, they are my buffers between, anyone that would seek to be an asshole. I don't find out. I wasn't on that phone call. I just find out if they want to hire me, and if they don't, that's the last, thing I know. And
Mm.
again, my nice little bubble, I'm so lucky to, to be protected in this ignorance. But if people are shitty about me, I I don't know, be shitty to my face because I don't get to hear about it when Andrew and Kurt are the ones that are in the way.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing I haven't really thought about. I feel like you were one of the first big pickups that I remember. Maybe it was just coincidental because I'd like followed you at the time. I don't know, but to an agency. So that's a really good segue. Like, how beneficial has an agency been for you? I mean, it's all about negotiating and making sure that someone is saying like, yeah, she's fantastic when you can't say it yourself. I mean, do you think that's been instrumental in developing your career, or do you think that it was kind of just a perk?
I would say it's for me personally, like it has been super important. I would say as a woman in this industry, there were people that would not give me the same consideration or the same numbers for pay or the same information as they're going to give, my boss Andrew. We just had this amazing tag team from early on when we met, where he was my representative. He went to bat for me. He went and asked the tough questions. He was also like my camera guy and my bodyguard, and he's one of my best friends in the world. I love this kid. But and I would give him, the credence and the whatever I had as having been in the scene for a while, I would give him my endorsement. And
Mm,
so, it became very good where, anyone who is like, hey, I want to book you for something. And that is a key moment to be manipulated. That is a key moment for a power dynamic. And as a woman, I definitely, the few times I did it myself, did not really enjoy the experience of negotiating, advocating for myself, not just for a job, but against, someone's idea of me. And so it has been an endless blessing to just be like, I appreciate so much. I always get to be nice and smiley and say, thank you. Talk to this guy.
mm,
And then, if he thinks I'm a bitch or whatever, or he thinks I'm not worth that much money, like I don't have to take those blows to my ego. And, you know, I, I don't like to think that I have a big ego, but I do think that I'm a little, yeah, as a talent, you're ego powered, right? You have to think like I'm doing a good job because it gives you the strength to keep doing a good job. So by not hearing those little critiques, they're like, well, she's not that great. I could get the other one for $400 less. Like that's not chipping away at me all the time. And so
mm.
one of the many things that a manager does is kind of protect you from that.
That sounds very helpful. Do you think that it's going to be commonplace in the future for like most esports talent to actually be part of an agency?
Um, I would hope so. Like, well, if every agency were like mine, if every manager were like mine, I would hope so, because it has empowered me to not only achieve a lot with that organization and with that negotiation that they lend me, but also, like I said, like keep keep my self identity and not feel like I have to compromise myself personally. I never have to stop being me. I never have to say like, well, shucks, or you know, it. I just don't get the job, and that's fine.
Hmm.
Um, Other talent might want to be more involved in that negotiation. Other talent might get concerned that like maybe he's not advocating for me right. Maybe he didn't work this angle. But once again, I would hope they have the same trust and relationship that I have with my management. And I understand that's not possible for everybody or with every manager out there. So, I just want everybody to be taken care of and
Yeah.
given a respect and be paid fairly.
Do you? I mean, it kind of sounded like this kind of like went hand in hand with just like the buildup that was esports back in the day. Did you apply to this agency at all, or I mean, did you have a process, or do you know the process? I guess.
This well, it wasn't even an agency when we started. It was I used to go to these events in New York City, me and my boyfriend Torch, and that's where I met Golden Boy, who's now a very famous caster. I met Rivington, who's a League of Legends caster. Like this was just our crew, and esports was super scrappy. I mean, Riv was sleeping in his car. I was like, no, and we would drive an hour and a half back into Jersey every night, back and forth, because I was for some reason the better option. Nobody afforded hotels or coffee or anything back then.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just these hyper passionate people who would vouch for each other. And so I think my boyfriend had briefly worked for Andrew as part of like an online tournament, and then Rivington, one of my best friends, worked for Andrew, and both of them were like, this isn't quite a right fit. Andrew's trying to like do a news show. You should talk to our friend Rachel. And so I think when I mentioned casting with Mole Trap, it may have been Andrew that put me up to it in what was currently the project we were working together on the time. But then we tried to spin up, as every person does at some point in their esports career, some version of the esports report. which, as every version does, failed. So we just kept iterating together, right? It was right about the time StarCraft was happening. We were like, let's do interviews, let's do StarCraft tournaments. So my path into the agency was totally non-traditional. This was something that kind of was the culmination of mine and Andrew's path through this industry. But then we picked up Smix, Sue Lee, who's very popular in StarCraft, Counter-Strike, several other games. We picked up Anna Prosser. And that was out of... Those were those moments where I was like, wow, they're doing so much for me. We could do this for other people. And so, I think Andrew was also a player manager at the time. He was taking care of Violet and Pult, and for a brief while, Naniwa. We were, at that time, Cyber Solutions Agency, I think, because we were just solutions for like any kind of random esports stuff that was going on.
Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking back. Did you guys put on the show where there was 5 players of Zerg and 5 players of Terran, Pult versus Violet teams?
Yes. And
I was on Team Pult. Yeah. I was on that.
How was your experience on Team Pult?
Oh, not that great actually.
Oh
no. Yeah. It was, I mean, I could go into it, but TLDR kind of, it was, I guess it was kind of mishandled. It was kind of forgotten about for some time. It was kind of my issue with it.
Well, it was made and it couldn't be sold was the problem for a while.
Yeah. So like I remember thinking like, I got to the final stage basically. I was the last one with Caitlin and she was on Team Violet, and I was like, okay, talk to you soon. And then like 6 months later, they're like, hey, we want to boot this up again. And I'm like, oh no, I haven't like played StarCraft in a long time. Like I'm casting it. Anyways, and then Paul's also Paul's one of those guys that, like the draw the rest of the fucking owl subreddit. Like that's him. He'll be like, well, just better, just like try it, but like better. And you're like,
you do this but faster.
So, I mean, it was a fun overall experience, right? But I just remembered you're bringing that acronym up. It just like flashed in front of my eyes.
Yeah, that was one of our projects. Congratulations to you and Caitlin, though, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah.
Semifinals and finals. And then, I think it was going to be for Machinima, and then like Machinima disappeared, and then it was for, But we were all kind of still figuring stuff out those days.
Yeah, no, I don't have any ill will. I just remember being like, like, okay, yeah, this is kind of the reality, a little bit, like it's not gonna, when you first get involved in that, it was kind of like, stars in your eyes, and you're like, oh my God, and it didn't really work out that way. But it wasn't like this killed ZombieGrub's dream of becoming a caster or anything like that.
No, this tempered ZombieGrub's expectations of the industry, I hope, is the experience.
Yeah, that's what happened. Anyways, do you ever talk with anyone in that agency about like how they look for new recruits? I mean, do you think that demo reels are really important to have for everyone in esports, or is it more of just like a host thing, or do you think a demo reel is even important?
Well, I think demo reels are fantastic. I think a couple times Twitch has gotten CSA, the character select agency, like Andrew and some of us as hosts together to run these workshops on like kind of how to approach hosting. Do you need an agent? Do you not need an agent? And running through a lot of these things. So I've definitely I've got a worksheet for you if you'd like about like kind of like things to run through, like how granular we want to get here. But the approach, I think, when you're a talent and you're trying to either get representation or to get jobs, the thing to do is to find out who is hiring for those jobs and then pitch yourself to them. Now, whether you're a streamer and you have your own show idea and you want to get sponsorship, or whether you're a talent and you think you're a great fit for a role that's becoming available, what you want to do is kind of put as much evidence as condensed as possible and as compelling as possible into an email. And so I think sizzle reels, or the talent hosting reels, anything like that, is very compelling, especially if it's like 90 seconds long. And then putting in some kind of thought and writing up how you think you personally can enhance the broadcast or enhance the product. So to say like, hey, I've got a lot of experience. I take a look at your player list and I know a lot of them personally. I think I could bring a great interview perspective to your broadcast. And I would love to ask, go as hard as you want. I would love to ask questions like these, or I'd love to illuminate something like that. And just pitch yourself and how you're going to be an asset. And that's what I remember doing. I hope this information holds up. I feel like it does. I've definitely gotten feedback that, this has been a helpful thing to do. A lot of I'm very proud of this. All the Twitch hosting workshop students that we had over the past 2 years, every single one of them has gotten a hosting gig, at least one. So,
Oh, really? Yeah. I actually think Fear Dragon was a part of one of those a few years ago.
yes.
Yeah. I guess with hosting when it comes to StarCraft, it's a little bit more, we had some let's say like weird crossover rules, for Challenger. One of us had to play like more of the host, but it wasn't like the job description was host, right? And we're actually gonna have that again with all the online stuff because this won't be announced. This won't be released until after it's already happened. But like,
secrets
I'm
out,
gonna
folks. This is not news.
Yeah, yes, yeah. You would have already known that I would have been hosting online. So this is an experience that came to me that I was just like, I wanted to do. I kind of took the reins in a previous tournament, and they were like, "You did a good job, so let's try you like in a more of a host role." But again, it's so weird because first of all, it's very like esports, right? This isn't like a panel or like a TwitchCon thing. It's directly related to esports. It's also online, so that we don't come back to us on a panel. It's not a desk host, it's not a stage host, not exactly, but it is a bit different. But yeah, he had to do that. I think it really helped him. He had very good things to say about it. But now I'm totally being selfish. I'm gonna ask you a bunch of like hosting related questions to help me.
Do it up. I'm here for it.
So, yeah, how do you prepare to host specifically? Like, do you prepare sheets of player names if you're not familiar? Because you also do more crossover games than I would have ever done. But do you think up questions that are vague and then think of more specific questions later? Like, what is your process when you get this host role?
Well, I would say my pre-process is compiling a ton of information. I think I could probably drag them all out of this cabinet behind me, but for every event I go to, I before the event will open a fresh notebook, and on the first page, it's the official name of the tournament, because number one rule of hosting or being on camera in general is, first, don't screw anything up. Don't say the name wrong, don't say the prize wrong, don't say, don't get anything wrong, because that's when people get real upset. So, I kind of put all that basic information down on one page. And then, if it's PUBG, I'll go team by team, or if it's StarCraft, I'll go player by player and just take whatever notes I can. I'll hit up their Wikipedia page, and then I'll hit up their Twitter and see if they said anything. I'll go to the subreddit and search their name to kind of find out, like, what's the conversation around each of these players. Because one of the responsibilities that StarCraft taught me early on is that if I'm going to be on the stage, I need to be a voice of the community. I need to be a bridge, not just like a performer. And so I really want to know kind of the community sentiments about the event, about the players, about what's going on. So I show up with like my notebook half full. And then when I sit down at the desk and I start the show, before we kind of have any actual action to talk about, I see my job as setting up the story, kind of talking about what's important, kind of building the narratives there. So it's a lot of question asking. I'm sure, part of the reason you got asked to take on more of the host role is part of the reason you're crushing into this podcast gig, is because you know how to guide a conversation. You know what sounds natural. You can be, bring up a topic, ask a follow-up question if it's interesting. You have a sense for that, and you can kind of use that as part of the performance. That's not a skill that I think everyone has. The more esports grows, the more each of us kind of perfects our role, and the more each role kind of gets separate from the other. But to be a desk host is kind of that perfect combination of analyst, commentator, host, interviewer. You're interviewing the analyst to get juicy data. You're presenting story, and then having your talent corroborate facts for it. I just try and keep the story of the individual players kind of central in my mind, and run from there.
Okay, that's good advice. Yeah. Have you ever been in an esport that you felt, or any topic, I should say, not an esport, any topic that you felt that you were actually very adept at, like you could actually even be an analyst in, and felt yourself having to balance being someone who takes over the conversation? That's one thing I feel like I would worry about. I don't want to be the host and then suddenly become an analyst, right? Like, is there any balance that you found that works out, or is this a problem that you've ever come into?
Absolutely. And actually, I would say this was a problem that I can really talk to at least my fellow StarCraft hosts about, talk to Sue and talk to Anna, because going through the phases, like as the community learned to be hosted, figuring out what these people wanted, what your audience wanted was central. And so I thought they wanted, step one was, let me ask about the game. Let me just be an invisible, or a fun little like asset, and say all the fun things, say the silly whatever MC, say the thing you say that they all love. And then people would be like, well, she doesn't know the information, she's just being silly and frivolous. And then I was like, oh, I had to show them that I know the information. So then my interviews became like commentary breakdowns with like a question that is lost somewhere in the middle. I'd be like, you stacked all those banelings, and then you did this one thing, and then you flew your thing over here, and then you did this, and then, so how do you feel? And like, that was not about the show, that was not about the player, that was about me putting on this performance of knowledge for the audience. So that was something that had to go on the wayside. And then what I kind of learned to do was set up my questions in a way that demonstrated my knowledge, which was, okay, you found yourself in this bunker, and, looking at the replays, you guys have been in this bunker all season long. You love to come here. So kind of what's the issue? So you just kind of like slip in that little bit of, I fucking know. Now I don't even ask questions anymore, Zombie. I just go, tell me what happened, as a command. And I add in the information around there. I'm like, you guys were coming up that hill, you had a huge spread, and you started getting picked off by CLG. So what happened, from your perspective, that turned that fight around? And that lets them know I know what was going on. To the audience, I'm asserting it as fact instead of wondering about it. And I'm giving the player a really clear thing, or I'm giving my analyst a really clear thing to talk about instead of making them answer something.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when there's an answer, when you ask a question, I feel like there's right answers and wrong answers, or things that can be made to feel certain ways. But when you're just ending a sentence, making a demand, whatever comes out next is valid.
All right. Yeah. Are there any technical mistakes that you see new hosts, stage hosts, desk hosts, either one, or interviewers make that you just are like, oh, okay, that's an easy mistake to make, but you shouldn't do this?
It's my least favorite one. Oh, and I'm gonna knock over my water as I do it. Oh, do you have a question for you? Thank you so much. And for you over here, you just change hands. Just. I'm sorry, whatever this sounds like. This is me changing my microphone left to right hand, pretend interviewing people on either side of me. Yeah, the minute I see somebody reach across themselves with a microphone, I'm like, amateur. It has, like, the most professional people do it. I've seen Ryan Seacrest do it. I have no right to call that man out. He is a genius at the craft, but like, that's the thing.
That is funny. Like, we'll actually be sitting in a bar watching like super professional ESPN broadcasters, and they'll have their mic cord. Be like, I have mine, right? And you're not supposed to do that. It's always supposed to be behind. And we start like yelling at them like our producer would.
Yeah, you fools.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I think, I don't know if it was you talking about it or someone I followed kind of talked about it just like very briefly. And I remember just being like, that's an easy way to look a little more professional. So I always made sure to have the right hand to the person. And the one time I really did the whole like in and out host or interview thing. I just like, they were like, go interview this person, say a couple things, and then get out. And I was just like, okay, so I have like 5 minutes to do this. Okay, like I just like try and chill, like just be like really cool. Okay, like this will have fun. All right. I just remember being like, at least I got this part right.
And nailing it.
That was actually a really cool interview. It's the one that gave me some confidence in trying to push more towards being a host. I think doing some more of the casual interviews like this, but also things that I've brought into like DreamHack Austin and stuff, gave me more confidence in it. But eventually happened at I Am Katowice just 4 months ago at this point. Time is so relative right now. But yeah, I did it. I did a interview with TLO and Spix that was actually pretty good. So I was like, oh, I should try this thing out if possible. But kind of on the topic of just like more so, I guess, getting the job. I mean, have you ever had any difficulty pushing yourself to other games or other platforms? Like, do you ever feel that you've been stuck in a particular game and that to convince someone from a different game to hire you instead of that person that they've seen being brought up by the community? It's a topic I ask actually a lot of my guests because I always feel like I don't want to come in and be like, I'm actually really good. Forget that person who's been doing it for 4 years.
I think it's again sort of the opposite situation where I'm actually someone who will come in very early in the life of an esports or in a game, because I would say a lot of my experience is picking something up and setting a good foundation for that game. And my experience over time has been a lot more like, once that machine gets rolling, like once the community builds up, once more people have emerged that are passionate and that have the skill set to present it, I find like me and there's a couple others in my agency. I think like Golden Boy is at the forefront of a lot of games and does a lot to like kind of get them moving. He did it with Rocket League. He almost built the entire Rocket League caster community, did all this work for them, and then he's like, okay, and they're ready to fly. And I had this experience early on in Apex where I was talking to someone who was extremely dedicated to Apex. They knew everything they needed to know about the game. They had a ton of experience, and they were in fact working the event alongside me. And we got to the point where they felt comfortable venting a little frustration, where they're like, well, people like you, Rachel, people like Alex get invited to these events because, you have a big following or a big name. And I'm like, first of all, it's not that big. Second of all, we don't get invited because we have a lot of Twitter followers or anything that is that kind of metric. We get invited because the production team knows that they might not have all the resources, but they've worked with us before and they know that Golden Boy and I will make a show out of anything. They know that everything can fall down around them, and we are so trial by fire tested, over this last decade plus, that, commentary will come out of us. If you put the camera on me, I will always talk. I will always do my best. I will always work to make that production, come together. And then once the production kind of gets its feet, once the scene, is chugging along a little more smoothly, that's where I have to recognize like my skill is really in building up teams, in helping a production get off the ground. When it comes to this presentation of ultra granular knowledge, I recognize that is a job for people who are way, way, way more plugged into the community. And sometimes it's a community that I too am plugged into, so I can stay, so I can hang around, I can talk about PUBG, I can watch these games, I can really appreciate the sport. But sometimes, like StarCraft, as it evolved, as all these more talented people kind of came out, I was like, okay, well, there's better fits than me out there. I love the product that they're bringing. It's time for me to back up a little bit. I'll always be here. I'll always be happy to come back, but it's its own entity now.
Do you ever get frustrated when you hear people kind of be like, we don't want them back? We're happy with the people here.
I don't know if I've so much had that experience. Like a lot of times I've had to make the choice either, like I did 2 seasons of Clash Royale. The first season I was like, I don't know if I didn't have the best time, schedule wise making it work. It was a crazy drive. It was, crazy hours and production delays. I don't know if I want to do this again. And they're like, well, we'd love to bring you back. Let's make it work, but let's, bring in somebody else to cover some of those crazy drive days. And so I guess I'm trying to think of like something I wasn't invited back to, and probably League of Legends. I don't know. Like that was but that was a game that I was like, this got too hard. You have people that are super passionate. Take these people. Take them. Like I can't, my desire to learn this game and present it is never going to outpace someone's fan passion for it. And I think that having respect for that fan passion, knowing when it's my time to back off, is it keeps me from kind of misspeaking or getting anything wrong or putting myself in a position where I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's a very interesting position. You're right. It's like the exact opposite of what I would have expected. How do you get involved with these new games then? If you're always on the ground floor, do you just play a lot of games yourself and you're just like, hell yeah, I want to host Apex stuff. Like I play it all the time. Or is it more to do with all the, I don't know, like behind the scenes stuff that happens, like production teams know who you are and want to hire you?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of the professional networking. Like again, like it's been a decade plus. I've had the same amazing management, his network, my network, a lot of the same crossover. A lot of the people that, we played with in PMS Clan are working at these game companies, and they've recognized, they notice over the years that, we're grinding, that we're still here, that we're committed. And so it's actually been a really lovely experience the last couple of years where people have said like, I came to you because I've seen your work, and I want your experience. I want you to bring that experience to this project that I have. So whether that's word of mouth from a production team who know that I will put up with some wild shit, or whether it's word of mouth from a game company that wants to bring me back on because I did a good job last time, or I would say with Ubisoft, I've been going and I've been doing their
Hmm.
developer interviews, and I love talking to developers. They're creating the games, the things that we love, and they have this immense passion. And I love, again, the same way I was with esports, being this translator for their passion and their knowledge to an audience to understand it. And I had so much fun working with developers. The developers had a great time working with me. That's why I get to go back, because I make the developers be their best. So it's about kind of developing a reputation, and it's about, I don't know, for me at least, like sincerely caring about doing a good job every time.
Ah, that's awesome. It's a bit of big baller status. I'm not gonna lie. You're just like, yeah, people know me and they know I'm good. So, what's up?
I hate, like, that's like the I don't mean to say that, like, but like the flip side of it is several times I've been the only woman in the room. So if you don't know me by this point, like there's like, I don't know, like
That's
30
true.
of us zombie. How many? They're running out of excuses.
No, you're right about that. Have you ever looked into any technical education about your job? Have you ever, I don't know, done any classes? I know some exist, or just like studied the news broadcasters or anything like that?
Um, I would say I've always been a student of hosts, and it was kind of like my background in anime and weebdom, like kind of one of those background things that's always helped me. I grew up on Total Request Live. I loved Carson Daly and TRL, and like I'm from Jersey, from the Jersey Shore where the MTV Beach House used to be. So I just remember like hanging on that wood railing, like that's amazing. And again, just kind of like passive stuff I picked up over the years. I did all sorts of, I was a fencer. I did like just weird, like I was an artist. I tried on so many hats that didn't fit. And but I did pick up some cool things along the way,
Hmm.
and man, where was I going with this? Did I have any technical
Yeah.
experience? The only other thing we did through CSA, we brought in this incredible woman, Wendy, who was a director for Disney kids shows and had actually worked with my cousin. So it was a family thing. We brought in Wendy, and Wendy was this amazing talent coach that I got a couple sessions where I worked with her privately, where I would pretend host and we'd record it and we'd look at it. We did a couple group workshops with CSA with her. She was amazing. By the same virtue, the Twitch workshops were as helpful for me as they were for the participants. Doing the improv, doing things like that. But no long term kind of study of the craft beyond really examining what I wanted to bring to the stage.
Did you ever think do you ever think you'll get into improv? That's one of the things I've heard a lot of people suggest.
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out right there. Could you say that again?
Do you ever think you're going to get into improv? You kind of brought it up, and I know people have suggested that to get better, to be on camera and on your feet.
I talk all the time about doing improv classes, and for once, I have a genuine excuse for not actually just doing it. But
Oh yeah.
I'm again like a longtime student of comedy. Stand up comedy is my favorite thing to watch. I love Upright Citizens, and we have the Groundlings here in LA. Um, it's just it's so smart, and it reminds me of our industry where you're watching Tina Fey, you're watching Jon Stewart, you're watching Stephen Colbert interview John Oliver, and you realize that they know each other like we know each other, where they've run into each other in Katowice, across the world, in Poland. They've gone through this crazy industry experience together, and so the same way we can kind of talk about all these semi-shared experiences, the comedy industry has a lot to teach us, I think, in regards to that. But yes, improv, so important. I should really do more of that.
Yeah, that was part of my plans as well before everything happened.
Maybe we can
I'm
get
with you.
some creepy like Zoom improv classes going. I bet that'd be really fun.
Esports improv classes. I want to see it. So we're getting kind of close to the end here. Last question from me is that, do you have any like nuggets of wisdom that you've kept with you throughout the years, the really important things that have stuck with you to continue being good at your job?
I would say that it's hard to give advice for different situations, but I will call out the biggest asset to me over these years has been the people around me, for sure. I've been exceptionally lucky to have a great partner who is grounded and is in this industry and is able to give me a very even perspective. I've had my boss for almost as long, Andrew at CSA, and now Kurt as well, my other manager. They will tell it to me like it is. They are people that I can bring my concerns, my problems, my questions about the industry, and they will have so much amazing knowledge to share with me. And my female friendships in this industry from the very beginning with PMS Clinton, having Amy and Amber to look up to, having Renoa, who's one of my best friends, having people like Smix and Anna who do the same job I do and can complain about the same stuff, whether it's, there's never any vegan food on the hotel menu, or whether it's, they gave me a earpiece at production and it's full of somebody else's earwax. Like, those things that kind of we can bitch about. So having a group of friends around you who will not only lift you up and gas you up way more than you deserve, but will give you an even perspective and will give you feedback and will tell it to you like it is too. It's indispensable.
Smix talks very highly of all of you every time I've ever talked to her. She's always like, you should
she's one
really
of my
meet this
great
person
loves.
one day. And I'm like, well, maybe one day.
Yeah, but next BlizzCon we all get together. This is a wine bar conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I have one more question personally. What do you think when you look at other hosts that are coming up in the scene, whether you know them or not? What do you see in hosts that make you go like, yes, that is a good host?
It's empathy. I think one of the things that has allowed me to get as far as I've gotten without any formal training is being genuinely concerned and excited and happy for the person next to me on the stage. So empathy in the form of, I'm never going to hit you with a spicy question and try and make you look bad. Empathy in the form of, I recognize the skill and the practice that goes into being an esports star, and I recognize that not everybody does. So let's work together to tell a story that truly showcases your achievements. I love telling the stories of success in our industry, whether it's a developer making the game they wanted, or a player getting the play they wanted, or someone winning the championship. Being on that person's team in that moment when I'm interviewing them is my secret power. And also talking to them a couple seconds before the interview starts, like letting them know what I'm going to say, letting them know that I support them. If you watch NPL, well, you can't anymore, but if you ever went back and watch those VODs, it's all like high fives and congratulations, and like I gas them up before they go on stage. So yeah, just celebrating what you're doing and bringing joy to it.
Sick, yeah. So now I'm going to move on to the Patreon question from a guy you would probably know, Axlav. You remember him?
Axlav, what's up?
Yeah. Okay, so what advice would you give aspiring minds of the future around handling yourself in talent green rooms or production meetings, etc., when you're the minority in the room?
Yeah, it's definitely I've definitely been like I said, the only girl in the room sometimes, lots of times, most of the time. Definitely been in the room, sitting there quietly, subject to conversation and bullshit and negativity that I don't want to hear, or subject to weird advances or anything. It's complicated, and it's especially this past week, the time we're recording this right now, a lot of people are coming forward in the industry with stories of harassment, stories of general shittiness. It's not, I don't know what industry would be easier than this. I do think that there's a lot of positivity here, and I do have a lot of avenues to protect myself and take care of myself, but I will also say that it is out there. And so the things that have benefited me, the advice that I have based only on my own experience, is having that incredible support group, having someone that the minute I feel uncomfortable, I can go to and express that discomfort and express my expectations for change, and know that they are actioning on them, that they are on my side. And then choosing not to go back into those green rooms sometimes, saying no thank you. Again, that's a tremendous privilege, to turn down money and work to protect, my mental state, or, my, to take care of myself. That's something I was really lucky to be able to do, but just not being there. And if you have to be there, being there with somebody, either in contact. Gosh, I don't know. It's not that dark. Green rooms are actually like a lot of fun. I have some amazing times in there. I don't know. Watch out. Don't let shit get dark. And if it does, it's not your fault. I don't know. Wow. how do you conduct yourself? You know, Axelot's question is more about personal conduct, I think, than it is about protecting yourself from other people outwardly. So I would say my personal conduct in a green room is as if I were at the dinner table with, you know, my boyfriend's parents. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to have a good time, but I am also in a professional environment. I'm not going to fart. I'm not going to leave a mess on the table and not pick it up. I'm not going to, I don't know. A lot of people change in the green room. That's fine. I'm not shaming that, but everything else.
Yeah, I think that's more what he was going along the lines of, or maybe like even just bringing me a question up in my mind, like when you're in a production meeting, are you ever kind of worried like, oh, if I speak up, I'm kind of being, I don't know, like the typical saying where like when a woman speaks up, she seems kind of, she's like she's bossy, or that she's everyone else wants to like get it over and done with, and they've all been this through 1,000 times. You have a genuine question, and you're kind of worried about being seen as either the bossy person or the not knowledgeable person. What do you say to people who say that they are concerned about that?
I would say that that's kind of, if you are hired to work an event, that's the wrong framework to kind of approach a situation where you're deciding whether to ask a question or pursue information. There, I'm thinking of like, if I'm at an event, someone paid me to be there, and we are that person who paid me and myself mutually invested in doing the best job possible. So if that means that I need to put my ego aside and ask a dumb question and maybe ask it for the third time because I have a terrible memory, I will do it, because when the moment comes, I want it to be right. And so again, like, that is the show that I am hired to do. You know, as long as this is within my boundaries of what I think is right and just, I will do that show. I will execute that vision. And yeah, at the expense of, speaking up or feeling awkward. Definitely there's times someone's been like, I think we should do a thing like this, and I'm like, hey, that's a very actually kind of offensive thing to do. Like, I can't shut up. I will say it. I'm sure people have, again, people I don't know about, because shout out to my management, have some negative opinions of times I've spoken up. But because I also evaluate when I speak up, I think very carefully, is this going to help the broadcast? Is this a problem that can be fixed right now? Is it any use to a production, a day before we go live, to suggest that we should maybe get a very expensive kind of telestrator? Well, no, that's not going to be solved, and that's just bringing up a problem that you can't fix. You have to kind of figure out how to make the best product with what's in front of you. And so, yeah, that's all that's relevant to me. Whether I feel silly asking a question or whether I feel like we're retreading ground or anything, that's kind of to the wayside.
It's a nice framework to say, like, just think of it as bettering the show. Like that momentary feeling of just like, oh, I'm stupid, means that you don't look stupid on the camera, which makes the whole show kind of look dumb a little bit worse as well. So I think that's a really good advice. Something that we can kind of stick to. Less emotional and more just like what's the best for everyone type thing is always like the best framework for me, best lens to view it as. So good stuff. Thank you very much for answering all my questions and hopefully making me a bit of a better host in the future. But yeah, also talking about the real
you're
stuff.
Great, babe.
Oh, well,
I hope my
thank
mic
you.
didn't peak too much. I know I get very excited when I talk about video games. So
Well, I felt that energy. It was actually really, really fun. I'm coming in here and I'm like, okay, like, it's going to be whatever o'clock and let's see how it is. And you're just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Come on. I'm like, oh, geez. All right. Yeah,
it's
let's
8:30 and I've had only coffee. Let's talk all day.
Yeah, exactly. So I really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you very much for giving me a bunch of insight and just coming and giving up an hour and a half of your time, but also make me feel really excited about, future opportunities and stuff. So
Well,
it's been
hell yeah,
really
I
cool.
can't wait until the world changes a little bit and we can all get back together again. It's been lovely talking to you, and I would love to repeat the experience sometime.
Yeah, one day, man, we're going to be back at the bars one day.
Amen.
All right. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. That was also listening, I suppose, as well. And I will see you guys for my next episode 13, with Artosis. Bye.
Ooh. Bye, guys.